Hello and welcome to this week's edition of The Olive Tree with me, Julia Fisher. This programme aims to bring you news and interviews from believers in Jesus living in Israel and the wider Middle East. I met Alison Barnett on a kibbutz in southern Israel recently while she was helping with an evangelistic campaign in the area with the missionary organisation Jews for Jesus. Alison was brought up in Liverpool and has a fascinating story to tell.
I've been working with the mission for 6 years now, but I come from what I always call a mixed family. So I have one parent who's Jewish and one parent who isn't. In my case, my dad is Jewish, and my great-grandmother and my grandfather, who was 3, came over from Lithuania in 1910 and got off the boat in Liverpool. And some Jewish people got off the boat thinking it was New York, but my family knew it was Liverpool. Well, they thought it was the tall building, you see, because of the live building. But my great-grandmother knew. So she came off the boat with my grandfather. And so my dad was born into a kosher family, Orthodox family. They went to shul every Friday. They spoke Hebrew and Yiddish. And then he committed the cardinal sin because he met my mother. My mother's the palest-skinned, bluish-eyed, blondest-haired woman you can meet. She isn't Jewish. And he was told, if you marry her, your children won't be Jewish. You marry out, it's a big deal. Anyway, so they got married with quite a lot of family disapproval at the beginning from his family. I'm happy to say they're still married 45 years on, so it's a real love match. So I was born into, really, they didn't want to talk about faith or God at all. It'd been quite traumatic. So I was born into a spiritual vacuum. I'm the first. I've got a younger brother. So I came into the world and didn't know anything. They never taught me about God or Jesus or Jewishness. But I spent every Shabbat, every Saturday with my Jewish family. And I had all the Jewish sort of food that you have and all the pickles. And it was all like this heavy gilt candlesticks and very Russian. And on Sunday I went to my Gentile grandparents and had ham and bacon. And I knew it was a bit weird, but I didn't know what question to ask as a child. And we did that every weekend for 15 years till my grandfather died. So it was all a bit weird, but I didn't know as a child what was wrong. I didn't know this was Jewish and this wasn't. But I always believed in God from a little girl, would look at the garden and think God created that. And I was never taught, so just knew it. And in our kishkas is what we say. And then at 11, I was sitting in a school assembly and they were playing music from the monastery in France called Taizé, where they put scripture to music. And they were using the verses from Jesus in the Garden of Gethsemane. And I knew, it was like a combination lock clicking. Yes, I believe in Jesus. Yes, I believe he's the Son of God. Oh, I'm 11. I don't know anyone who believes. I can't go out on my own and I can't drive. And so I decided I would wait until God made it possible. And I didn't tell anybody. And then when I was 16, a friend of mine, who was the daughter of the local minister, invited me to a church youth outreach. And I went. And I felt I'd come home. And so I went home and I said to my parents, I've become a Christian. Wasn't greeted with the most excitement I've ever. They reacted quite badly. And I remember my father saying, well, I'm Jewish and you're a Christian. That's the end of that. And I didn't understand what, the deal was.
So you were very surprised at their reaction. Was it upsetting?
Yes, it was. And looking back, I'm very close to my dad. And I'm surprised I didn't just think, oh, well, I'll wait another couple of years. But I'm very impatient. And I think I felt I'd waited long enough. So I started going to church every week. So then for the next 18 years, I went to church, I went to uni, I became an accountant, which I really didn't like. Sorry if anybody not accountant. I didn't like, but and then I became a teacher, which I loved, and I ended up teaching abroad. And while I was in Hong Kong teaching, really felt the call of God on my life to come back to Britain, to go to Bible college, and to become a preacher, and to go to the Middle East. That was the calling.
But Alison, just to go back to your family, to actually at quite a young age, when you're part of a close family, to strike out on your own like that, you must have been pretty certain that your faith was real, because you knew it was upsetting your parents.
Yeah, I think I had a real encounter with Jesus. For me, it was a real face-to-face encounter with him, and he was a living, breathing person to me. It wasn't just someone in a book. It was this, I suppose, meeting of souls and minds. And my best friend died when I was 17, just after I came to faith. And she was a believer. And I remember thinking that only he had the answers as to why that had happened and why he hadn't healed her. Yeah, it was quite, although it was a very traumatic event and I was pretty angry with him, I knew that only he had the answers to life and death, and I didn't want to be... The John 6 verse about when Jesus says to the disciples, "Are you going to leave me too?" And they say, "Where would we go? You are the Son of the Most High God." That's how I feel. Where else is there to go? And I think for my parents, although they didn't really like it didn't interfere that much. And, I'm a good girl, so I was studying and got a good job and all that stuff. And it didn't really impact particularly on them in some ways, because things just carried on in a nice way for quite a few years.
So you went to Hong Kong and you came back.
Yeah, so I ended up at All Nations Christian College, and it's a mission college in the south of England, and I was thinking Muslim mission, Egypt or Syria. And then I got there and I met Dr. Richard Harvey. He was my Hebrew teacher, and amazingly my father paid for Bible college, and he still unsaved my dad, so that was really God. And my dad gave me his Hebrew book to help me in my Hebrew class. And when Richard saw it, he was like, "Where did you get it from?" And I like to be top of my class. It gets me into a lot of trouble. So I said, "Oh, this is my dad's and he's Jewish." And Richard got very excited and said, "Well, you're Jewish too then." And I just was horrified. That sounds terrible, but I was just like, no. And in front of all these people, I said to maybe the most famous Messianic Jew in Britain, "You don't know what you're talking about." But I eternally regret those words. And I said, "I'm not Jewish, my mother isn't." And he was just like, "Well, the Bible says the God of Abraham, Isaac and Jacob, all the genealogy through the male line, circumcision's on the man, so yes, you are." And I freaked out. I did the only mature thing. I ran away. And for 2 weeks, I just ran away from Richard.
Why do you think it was such a shock? What was it in you that reacted like that?
I think partly my identity was very strong in Jesus. And I didn't feel I needed anything else. It was enough. And I also thought it's quite an important piece of information. I've been a believer 18 years. Surely God would tell me that I am Jewish, and it changes things. It changed how I looked at theology. It changed how I looked at the Bible. Ultimately, it became, where God was calling me to be. And it's a different culture, and I didn't know anything, really. And I think that was quite a shock, really. When you're 34, you don't expect that to happen the first week of Bible college. That's not what's meant to happen there.
Anyway, you went back, you got your act together again, and you came across Jews for Jesus and started volunteering for them.
Yeah, so within the first fortnight, I really felt God calling me to Israel and to Jewish mission. And Richard suggested, why don't you go and try Jews for Jesus? I think that would be a good fit for you and who you are and your skill set and stuff. And so I think I'd been volunteering maybe 6 weeks with them. And I was at a Hanukkah party, and my future husband was there too. And he'd been volunteering. He's a teacher at the time. He'd been volunteering with them as well. And we bumped into each other, and the rest, as they say, is history. So I think within 18 months, I discovered I was Jewish, got my call to Israel, got married in a Messianic wedding that Richard took, got my degree in theology, and became a missionary with Jews for Jesus.
And now you are here helping on a campaign in Israel, but you're planning to come and live here as well, aren't you?
Yeah, Barry and I both have a very strong call to Israel, which we got separately and then together as a couple 7 years ago. So we've been praying into that. And beginning of this year, God really opened a door for us, and it's now. So we're just trying to raise a final bit of support, and then we're hoping to be out here in the next few months.
What are you doing in this campaign? What is the aim of it? I gather it's a campaign that's ongoing. Jews for Jesus are going around all the cities and villages within Israel. How do you go about it?
Okay, so yes, this is number 8 of 12 that we're going to do for each of the regions of Israel. So, and this is in the south, which is quite hard, very hard ground. So there's several strategies that we're using. So we have 4 sorties. So a sortie is when you go out in a team. We have 4 of those a day. And the first one is always bannering. So we're up at 5, but we're out at 6. And we have these huge banners that proclaim Yeshu equals Yeshua equals Yeshua. So Yeshu is the name that often Israeli people know Jesus as. It's a curse word that's used about him. And so it's explaining what his real name is, and then his name means salvation. And so we hold them at busy junctions and intersections. And there's a phone number to ring for the office in Tel Aviv. And we've had a lot of people phoning in, wanting to know more. We had one guy come to faith last week because he phoned in, and Leah in the office led him to faith, which is fantastic. Then we come back, we have chapel. We've got two fabulous chaplains here. And then we go out again. So sometimes we do questionnaires. So we go into shopping centres. We've got a 4-question questionnaire on security and peace, with the final question being about Jesus being the ultimate hope for peace and the possibility of him being the Mashiach, the Messiah. We do tracting. So we hand out tracts all over the region. We go into marketplaces in shuks. We go sort of undercover sometimes, so without the T-shirts on, into more orthodox areas. Sometimes we go in with the questionnaire. We have teams phoning, cold calling the phone book in English, Hebrew and Russian. And then we have a final sortie in the evening. And so the teams rotate those sort of strategies. And sometimes they're bannering, and sometimes they're sorting, and sometimes they're phoning.
It must take an awful lot of determination and willpower to get up in the morning and do this sort of work.
I think it's conviction. I'm really convicted that the Jewish people need to hear the gospel. I think the statistics are 99.9% of Jewish people in this country don't know Jesus. And it's such an unimaginable number. And I think we're all convicted that we have to go out and preach. You know, it says isn't it, in Romans, how beautiful the feet of those who bring the good news. And I think on the days when we're tired, other members of the team will encourage us, and we know it's for a short patch. We're only here for 2 weeks, and we want to make it every minute count, and we don't mind. The team's really passionate about the gospel and really passionate about Jesus.
Alison Barnett sharing her story. You're listening to The Olive Tree with me, Julia Fisher. The Olive Tree Reconciliation Fund is a Christian charity based in the UK that supports the needs of both Jewish believers and Arab Christians living in Israel and the wider Middle East. If you would like to know more about our work and receive our free bi-monthly newsletter, please either visit our website, olivetreefund.org, or write to me, Julia Fisher, at the Olive Tree Reconciliation Fund, PO Box 850, Horsham, RH12 9GA in the UK. Meanwhile, join me at the same time next week for another story from the Olive Tree. Until then, goodbye.